जगह ग्रहण करें. Today's eminent speakers are Arupa Pantgiya Kalita. Arupa Pantgiya Kalita, ma'am please आप आएं. श्री राहुल सैनी सर आप आएं. उर्मिला शिरीष and Asaram Lomate, and the last speaker for today is M. Narendra. अरुणा जी असमिया में अपनी पाठ करेंगी. राहुल सैनी अंग्रेजी, उर्मिला शिरीष हिंदी, आसाराम लोमटे मराठी एंड एम नरेंद्र तेलुगु. कौन नहीं आए? I think Urmila Shirish is not there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And S. Narendra. Okay. Narendra. And Asaram Lomate. I think he's also not there. Urmila is not there. Rahul Saniji is here. And Aruna ji is here. Right. This session is on Bahubhashi Kahani Path, which is multilingual short story readings. किस्सा गोई मानव इतिहास का आवश्यक हिस्सा है. ऐसी कोई सभ्यता या काल नहीं जबकि मनुष्य ने अपने साथियों से कहानियां साझा नहीं की. साझा करने की बात सामुदायिक जीवन से निकली और कहानियों ने न केवल मनोरंजन किया बल्कि श्रोताओं की सृजनात्मकता को भी बढ़ाने का काम किया. किस्सा गोई की प्रकृति अनिवार्यतः वाचिक है, लेकिन लंबे समय से विशेषकर औद्योगिक क्रांति और प्रिंटिंग प्रेस की शुरुआत के बाद से कहानियां लिखित अथवा छपे स्वरूप में उपलब्ध होने लगी. साहित्य अकादमी लगभग 4 दशकों से कहानी पाठ और कहानी श्रवण की कला को पुनर्जीवित करने के लिए अपने द्वारा मान्यता प्राप्त सभी भाषाओं में कहानी पाठ के कार्यक्रमों का आयोजन करती रही है. यह सत्र अनेक भाषाओं में कविता को प्रोत्साहित करने की अकादमी की उसी प्रतिबद्धता की अगली कड़ी के रूप में आयोजित है तथा साहित्य प्रेमियों को सीधे उनके प्रिय कथाकारों के मुख से अनेक भाषाओं में कहानियां सुनने का अवसर प्रदान करता है. Telling tales is the essential part of human history. There is no civilization or time when human beings did not share their tales with fellow humans. The sharing aspect is stemmed in gregariousness, and tales provided not only entertainment but also served as a tool to trigger creativity in the listener. Storytelling is essentially oral in nature, but over a period of time, especially after the dawn of Industrial Revolution and arrival of printing presses, they have become written or typed down. Sahitya Academy has been organizing story reading programs in all the languages. It has recognized for about 4 decades now to revive the art of story reading and story listening. This session is a continuation of that commitment to provide the literary lovers the pleasure of listening to stories directly from their favorite authors in multiple languages. I take the opportunity to introduce the chair of this session, Bhupinder Aziz Parihar. He is an eminent Urdu poet, translator, and editor. He has published and supervised publications of several books in Urdu and English. He has edited 12 books of Urdu Alive, a biannual literary journal of Urdu in English. He has pursued a career in academics as a professor of English language and literature since 1976. Recipient of the highest state literary awards, Shiromani Urdu Literature 2003 and State Award for Literature in 2015, he was writer in residence in UK and Germany, German Literature House 2006, and Mauritius, World Urdu Conference 2015. Humbly, I invite you, sir, to conduct the further session. And you can use cordless, whatever is comfortable to you. Yes, sir.
Dear friends, distinguished scholars, translators, poets, writers. My association with the Academy spans over 3 decades. The exposure I got in conferences, seminars, workshops was tremendous. The basic function of such gatherings is to generate a climate of ideas, germination of new, fresh ideas, so that we may revisit, revision, and redefine the stereotypes, subvert them, and see those concepts and ideas in contemporary contexts. During the past 20 years, our lives have undergone radical changes. We all know that. I was born in 54 and I have seen those times, the cycle age, the scooter age, the human contact, the community living. All those sanskars I have experienced and tried to practice. The session devoted to storytelling is of special significance for all of us. We are in the august company of storytellers. Interestingly, I have some observations to make. Number one, we always think on lines of a tale. During the course of the day, we are dreaming, we are aspiring, we are desiring, and weaving webs of magic. Story as an oral tradition was transformed into written form. This ancient art form was basically meant to bring communities together. That was the basic function of the Asthan, Afsana, Kahani. And interestingly, another observation I would like to make is, before the modern literature in 20th century was born, the late 19th century philosophers, including Freud and Henry Bergson, Bergson's statement that time is never linear in life and literature. Time is always psychological. Students of literature know it well that this observation by Henry Bergson triggered new techniques like Chetna Parvas, stream of consciousness, Joyce, Proust, Virginia Woolf. They are all products of this stream of consciousness. And in Indian literature too, Kurtul and Haider, Patjhad Ki Awaaz. Read those stories. The very opening story, you will find how a lady comes down to buy some vegetables from a vegetable seller, and during the course of her purchase, something happens within, which Henry James calls the inner atmosphere. She captures those moments like Joyce and Ulysses during the course of a day. He captures time, conquers time with this technique. And the second point, stories began with once upon a time. These four words transform us to a realm which Lucas calls transcendental homelessness. We are isolated from the mundane, the palpable, the sordid existence, and taken to a world which, in the words of another critic, we become dwellers of eternity. So is the case with a storyteller. A storyteller is a dweller of eternity. And in Indian story writing, भारतीय कहानी प्रथा जो रही है 60 और 70 और 80 की दहाई में, जितना मैंने देखा, वो प्रयोगवाद का दौर था. एब्स्ट्रैक्ट कहानियाँ लिखी गईं, सिंबलिस्ट कहानियाँ लिखी गईं और बहुत से प्रयोग हुए, हिंदी कहानी में हुए, भारत की दूसरी भाषाओं की कहानियों में ये सब एक्सपेरिमेंट्स देखने को मिले. लेकिन व्हाई द मिसफायर्ड? प्रेमचंद ने कहा था कहानी और नॉवल का डिफरेंस बताते हुए, उनकी एक ही लाइन काफी है कि how to differentiate between a novel and a story. He says if a gun is hanging on the wall in a story, it must fire. In the novel, it may not. Novel as a genre isolates us. Story brings us closer to the storyteller and establishes a kind of nearness. We are into proximity with the storyteller. So today we are here to listen to them, and all these experiments failed. Abstract story, experimental story. I may observe that story is not a liberal art, as you will find in the stories of our fellow storytellers. It's not a liberal art. It is a crafted art. It has a sense of ending. And if I am not wrong, ultimately it constructs a moral doctrine. As art is always an improvement on life. The great classics, the great classic stories that we are familiar with, ultimately, in essence, construct a kind of moral, ethical doctrine. There is an ethical shade to it, implied, stated, or overstated. We have read Premchand, we have read Rajendra Yadav, we have read Usha Premvada's Vapsi. That one story stands out with the moral doctrine. Premchand comes up with the message. It has a vast Premchand, I consider him. Manto, to me, as a reader, comes next. Manto was too bold and candid. He mirrored the stark realities of life to subvert the function of art. Premchand, in a sober, gentlemanly way, narrated life, Eidgah and Kafan and all those stories. There may be controversies regarding Kafan, we are familiar with all those things. But a story is a story. And those who have read Joseph Conrad's The Heart of Darkness, it's a little longish story, but it has a very profound message. How evil works in human mind and ultimately Satan prevails. This is not the message of Conrad. Conrad's message is on the reverse side. Kurt shouldn't have behaved like this. He was there with a mission. But he was accumulating wealth throughout. And all these things I wanted to share with you by way of sharing these observations. There are many more things now we will talk about after we listen to our worthy storytellers. Please lend your ears.
Thank you so much, sir. I request all the speakers to please stick to the time. You have 10 to 12 minutes for your address. I would like to invite Arupa Patenga Kalita. She is a noted Assamese writer. She taught English literature at Tangla College, Assam. She has 5 novels, 12 collections of short fiction, 2 novels for children, translations into Assamese. Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye is the most recent to her credit. Several of her books have been translated into English, Hindi, Bengali, Marathi, and Bodo. She is a recipient of Bharatiya Bhasha Parishad Literary Award, Katha Award, and Sahit Academy Award. Most humbly, I invite you, ma'am, for your address.
Greetings to all of you. So today, I am going to tell you the story of a half-burned bus being dragged by a truck. Okay? Let me read out the story. And the story will be a skeleton, without metaphor, without simile, without detailed description. Simply, I want to tell you the gist of the story. Okay? The half-burned bus at midnight. Right in front of the police station, a road forks away from the national highway. Further down this road, the traffic scenes. Instead of shops and bazaars, you can see paddy fields on both sides of the road. After a while, you can spot a river which runs alongside the road all the way through. 2 rows of simul trees flank the river near the bridge, from where it flows straight on and disappears from the roadside. The little town begins where the row of simul tree ends. The people who live on the banks of the river are like a flock of chickens without the mother hen. Nobody has given them anything. Unused to privilege of any kind, they do not demand anything. Probably believe they deserve nothing either. Whichever political party declares a band, they observe it, they are watchful to never get into an argument or strife, and are hyper-conscious not to get involved. So life continued in this way. However, because it is more peaceful a place compared to towns and villages in the vicinity, it has been expanding quite rapidly. So, in this area, you cannot find a beautiful house. All the beautiful houses are found in the center of the town. The only big house in this area belongs to Ram Gopal De. Actually, all the people who have built their little houses on the bank of the river have been driven from their original homes in different villages. Like them, Ram Gopal had also left behind this. Fearing the ethnic cleansing, some people took part in while seeking their own land and has now settled down here. He opened a garage to start his life all over again. Besides repairing damaged cars, he has also started another business. He buys broken cars, and buses almost beyond repair, makes them as good as new and sells them in the market. Most of the boys who work in Debabu's garage belong to the houses on the river bank. So one day, into the town entered a bus at midnight. The bus approached the road, which veers away from the national highway near the police export at the Shah Ali. The bus could not progress on its own steam. A truck was pulling it. The silence of the night was rudely disturbed as the bus labored down the road. The bus was being dragged along the river bank. Wherever the truck-drawn bus had passed, the water of the river turned black. The sky above the water became dark too. There was no moon, no stars. What remained was only an inky dark, impenetrable sky. Under the dark sky, as the bus went on, the water of the river became red, the color of blood. Wherever the shadow of the bus fell on the river, the water became blood red in color and the fish died. The truck took a turn. It was difficult to maneuver the bus tight to its rear. As the bus followed the truck at this turning, the shadow fell on the sandbank. Instantly, the fire seems to burn everything. The little wheat plants went up in cinders as if a jungle fire had scorched them. As the half-burned bus went on its way underneath the banyan tree, the birds fell down one by one as if they were seeds. It looked as if life had been sucked away from them by an unbearable heat. Darkening the sky and water of the river, killing the fish, burning the fireflies, impaling the birds, the half-burned bus went on towards the little town. By the time bus left the spot, the beautiful lotus garden in the pond was gone. The truck was speeding up a little now. At last the bus arrived at the little town. It was almost dawn now. Then there was a tidy house near the road, and the bus went on. The little baby's mother was still sleepy and wanted to hush him by putting her nipple in the mouth. Just then the bus crossed by their house. Suddenly, the milk froze in her breast, depriving the baby of his only food. So there is a very old paddy field around here. The freshly plowed land filled up with ashes. Then the bus went on, that half-burned bus. The bus was now skirting the field. A few minutes ago, a flock of white cranes had landed on the field. Then one by one they dropped on the black earth, their necks twisted at the odd angle. The white flock of cranes were now dead. Then, as the half-burned bus made its way by the forest, the thick leaves of the sal trees got burnt, and soon an earthy smell like burning tobacco leaves drifted through the air, assailed the senses. Then the bus, half-burned bus, went on. Within a second, a cluster of dragonfly was killed by the bus. As soon as the bus crosses, the group of dancing dragonflies were completely destroyed. Bus was still rolling along. Its destination was Ram Gopal's garage. The bus had by the time reached Dr. Babu's garage. The young boys could see it from a distance. A half-burned bus with a long body, blackened with soot. Even in this state, it was easy to see that bus was a luxury bus, meant for long-distance travel, comfortable and smart. The young men approached the bus with hammers and other instruments, the young boys. Two of them slid down under the bus, two went to the front, and other two were by the side. They were ready to start. But as soon as they touched the bus, they were turned into stone. Yes, those fresh young men standing between adolescence and youth turned into statues. The bus, which had entered the town at midnight, aiming for Debabu's garage, had come from a place that had reverted to an uncivilized state. The community that wanted its own state wanted to establish the right over others and had called for a band. The bus has entered the area early in the morning. It was full of passengers. The morning was bright and sunny. Under the bright sun, the bus was burning furiously. Not a single passenger could escape. The windows and doors of the bus were shut tight, and a can of petrol was emptied on the vehicle. Even before the fire caught properly, the poisonous gas asphyxiated the little children in the lap of the parents. On that lonely road, the bus burned unattended. Before fleeing the scene, the attackers had aimed their rifles at the bus. The bullets came in torrents. Of course, not a single passenger survived. By the time the police, the military, the administrators, and the fire brigade vans arrived, the people inside the bus were dead. Their bodies reduced to clump of burnt flesh. Yes, the half-burned bus entered the town at midnight. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next eminent speaker is Rahul Saini. He is an eminent writer with bestsellers like Paperback Dreams, which won the A3F Author Award for Best Satire in 2019, and Those Small Little Things, which was translated in Hindi and won the award for Best Translation by the Federation of Indian Publishers in 2011. His latest book, The Part I Left With You, is also a well-received work. He also runs a YouTube channel called Writing Rahul, where he talks about books, music, movies, and TV shows. I respectfully invite you, sir, for your address. English. English.
Good afternoon, everyone. I like these post-lunch sessions. They are very cozy and tight and not very overwhelming. I'm at a very tight position here, sir, because you've just mentioned that there's no scope of any experimentation in short story writing, and that's exactly what I've done here. So please don't kill me if I do something wrong. I think I'm the most inexperienced of the lot, and I have a lot of questions unanswered. First of all, thank you all, the team. I have been here from day one, and I've seen how hard the camera person and the audio people and the anchors been working. So kudos to you. Tomorrow, I guess, all of you will party. Is this better? Is this better? No? Can everyone hear me now? All right. My name is Rahul Saini, and I'm so tempted to change it to Rahul Saini Khambdewala because not it tells where I'm from, but it just sounds very funny. I am a teacher as well, so she's laughing already. So I just want to see that giggling faces of my students when I say that I'm Rahul Saini Khambdewala. It just sounds so funny. I am a very, very, very nervous reader, so when I'm reading the story and if I go wrong anywhere or if I fumble, please don't kill me. I'm a nice person, basically. And I know. No, I won't do that. I've been on those chairs. I know. Yeah, should I switch this off? Okay. And someone here knows that time is really running in slow motion for me right now. Okay. So, talking about me being so bad with reading out loud, that's something which has been a flaw of mine since I was a kid, and my teachers used to beat me for that when I was a kid, and I was so naive. I would beat them back. It was only after a while that I learned that that's not how it goes in school. You're only supposed to get beaten. You're not supposed to beat up your teachers. Anyway. So we live today in a very kaleidoscopic world. It's very jagged. Things are discontinuous, abrupt. Things suddenly start and they suddenly come to an end. People don't have that retention of memory anymore that we used to have. Things are replaced and not repaired. From your phones to your cars to relationships, everything falls in that bracket. This is something which I have tried to kind of portray in the story that I'm going to just read out. A bit about my understanding of a short story. It's either one incident or a series of incidents that are put together in a way which makes sense to us, that's one. It conveys a meaning and it makes us feel something. I have been bad with plots in all my novels, and I have kind of stopped worrying about it now because I kind of understand what my forte is. So this story does not have a plot, and it's just an attempt to make you think and make you feel something. Now I'm in a tight spot because I need to hold the book and I need to hold this. So how are we gonna manage that? We'll just see. Okay. All right. A little background. So I had to like chop. मैं बैठ के बोलते. I was gonna ask for that, but I was so hesitant to ask that. So this is an episode from a novel actually, which I wrote 2 years back. Just a little background. There's this starry-eyed journalism student who has an author, and she's a big fan of that author. She is like, oh my God, this is my God, and I just want to meet that author somehow, someday. They're given an assignment to write a paper on their favorite author. So she goes to meet that author for an interview, and this is just basically an excerpt of that interview that starts to happen between them. So it's like, of course I am unhappy. Almost every creative person is. They are always unsettled with things around them. That is why they are pushed to create new things. If they were happy with the things around them, they would never feel any urge to create anything new. It's plain logic. We would be listening to the same music, we would be watching the same movies, we would keep reading the same books. Ronit Sadev says, as I struggle to note everything down as fast as I can before I shoot my next question. Time and again, you have expressed your disapproval of mainstream entertainment, commercial Hindi cinema to be precise. What is it that upsets you so much about it? At once, without any hesitation, he says, stories are strange. They are very different from reality. They are always incomplete. In stories, in films, we see characters and not people. Characters showing us some imaginary people's characteristics. That's why they are called characters in the first place. Those glamorous, beautiful, good-looking characters we see getting together at the end of the film can never live happily ever after if it was all for real. Stories are written, they are engineered, they are made to make you feel something. The writers are playing with your mind. And in that process of engineering, a lot of lies are thrown. So don't believe that life is going to be what you see in the movies. Overwhelmed by the images of my favorite actor, I simply jump. You know what's my type? A tall, dark, handsome man with a thick stubble and who loves to travel. Oh, that's such a dream. And seconds after I blot that out, I realize what a huge blunder I've committed. It's a total contradiction of what Ronit had just said. Why I'm so stupid, why I just keep doing this. I just want to disappear and jump out of the window like a tiny hummingbird. The deadly silence is followed by Ronit's words in a voice heavier than before. Have you even been listening to what I've been saying? No tall, dark, handsome with a thick stubble who loves to travel with a worn-out rucksack on his back is going to tell you how much he loves you and promise you a cozy night of togetherness. With the romantic sun, with the sun romantically setting in the background behind the mountains. I was referring to that film here. That Ranbir Kapoor film in which he goes traveling. What was it called? Ye Jawani Hai Diwani. That's what I was referring to here. And if at all that happens, you both will never be happy with each other in the long run. Such a union will only lead to endless fights and a bitter life. Some people are purely individualistic and they are meant to lead solitary lives. I totally disagree with what he is saying, but I don't want to get into an argument, so I ask my next question. The idea of a romantic relationship is projected in your books in a very different way, as it is projected in the mainstream entertainment. This has pushed me to ask you a rather peculiar question. Do you think you can fall in love in life more than once? He leans back in his chair and looks at the ceiling with unseeing eyes. After a long pause, he says, I think we do. I think we fall in love multiple times, but not all of them stay with us for all our lives. Only those to whom we formally commit may stay. And after a while, we stop loving them too. We want them to be around because we have grown accustomed to them. Like a piece of furniture, they make our lives comfortable and secure, helping and assisting us in the things that we do every day. The kind of love you think and you believe in does not really exist. Love is the biggest hoax in the world. Strongly disagree with again, but not up for an argument. My next question. Do you think the quality of fiction, movies, and art in general has gone down? It is because we live in an age of ignorance. Ignorance has become a reason for celebration. Many people have no deep knowledge about anything, but still they feel they know everything. To learn an art is an act of meditation. It is a truth that people have forgotten. You have to stay put, be calm and focus. You can't keep jumping around, running all the time, trying 100 things, understanding nothing and pretending that you have learned everything. I want to talk about this for a little while, but I don't have time. So I move on to my next question. I have spent quite some time with you and I have noticed one thing. You at times make up words. It's something really interesting. I would like to know why you do that. I haven't ever thought this question before properly, but I'm just firing it. I hope I don't offend him. It is because sometimes I feel the right word has not been invented for the feeling that I want to express. You know, that's funny, because I used to do that as a kid, a lot. Once my teacher asked me why I keep doing this, and I told her the exact same thing that you just told me. And she said that it's not because the right word has not been invented. It's because your vocabulary is low. I have never actually met anyone before who does this. I am so happy to know this. She bats her eyelids. You should find the teacher and ask her that if she has ever read the works of Roald Dahl. I smile, he smiles back. I'm so pleased to see him smile that I really need to find a new word for the expression of delight that I feel right now. Maybe I want to call it happy fantastication. He looks so charming when he smiles. It's the purest, most genuine smile that I have ever seen. I want to freeze this moment forever and live an eternity in it. But suddenly he just gets up as abruptly as he had started talking. It's getting late. It's already dark outside. You must leave. I have no filtering system and I just blurt out. No, wait, I can't leave like this. No, you have to give me something. Something to remember me by. Remember you by. I say. He has to give me something like Kajol did to Shah Rukh Khan while that train was moving away from the platform. She threw her red dupatta on him and, he stares at me for a while and then he says, I'm not going to give you anything, but a piece of advice. I always want you to remember. You may become as big as you want. You may become as successful as you wish. But if you fail to become a good person, you fail everything. That's all. That's all, yeah.
So, thank you so much. Our next speaker is आसाराम लोमिटे. आप प्रख्यात मराठी कथाकार हैं. आपकी कृतियों में इडा पिडा चलो, आलोक, धूड़ पेर और तनास शामिल हैं. आप पेशे से पत्रकार हैं और मराठी दैनिक लोक सत्ता में कार्यरत हैं. आपके कहानी संग्रह आलोक का हिंदी और कन्नड़ में अनुवाद हुआ है. आपकी कुछ कहानियां सावित्रीबाई फुले पुणे विश्वविद्यालय और शिवाजी विश्वविद्यालय कोल्हापुर के पाठ्यक्रम में शामिल हैं. आप मराठवाड़ा साहित्य परिषद औरंगाबाद के मुखपत्र प्रतिष्ठान के संपादक रह चुके हैं। आपको साहित्य अकादमी पुरस्कार, महाराष्ट्र फाउंडेशन पुरस्कार, GL ठोकर पुरस्कार, सह्याद्री साहित्य रत्न पुरस्कार, डॉक्टर AV वर्ती पुरस्कार से सम्मानित किया जा चुका है। बहुत आदर के साथ आपको आमंत्रित करते हैं श्री आसाराम लोमटे।
इस कहानी पाठ में मैं मेरी कहानी पढ़ने जा रहा हूं, जिसका शीर्षक है कहानी नहीं है यह। इसका शीर्षक ही ऐसा है कि कहानी नहीं है यह, मतलब नहीं है यह, मतलब यह कहानी नहीं है। तो मौखिक परंपरा से चली आई कहानी की जो परंपरा है, उस परंपरा ने आज के दौर में कौन सा रूप प्राप्त किया है। तो ये फिक्शन तो है ही, लेकिन इसमें कहानी के बारे में कुछ स्टेटमेंट ही आपको दिखेगा। कहानी समय को बांधे रखती है, कहानी में समाता है समय। पहले कहानियां सुनाई जाती थी एक दूसरे को। एक बार हुआ यूं, कहते कहते न जाने कितना पीछे चला जाता था सुनाने वाला। कहानी मिलती नहीं अब आसानी से। कहानी सुनाने वाली और सुनने वाली फुर्सत कहाँ से ढूंढे। अब कहानी हाथ में आती है और छूट चली जाती है। अंजूरी से फिसली नन्ही मछलियों की तरह जोर से फिसलती जाती है कहानियां। उसमें से कौन सी पकड़ कर रखिएगा। अब जो भी सुनाना है बस पर्दे पर। कहानियां चित्रों में घूमती है सभी तरफ हवा की रफ्तार से। मिनट 2 मिनट की जिंदगी, कुछ की जरा सी ज्यादा। हथेली जैसे पर्दे पर सर से फिसल जाती है कहानियां। कहानी नहीं रही रस लेकर सुनाने की और रसिकता से सुनने की। बस अब चुटकी में पकड़ना और छोड़ देना। हमारे पास आई कहानी वायरल करना, बस यही बचा है। कहानी सुनाने के बजाय यह सबसे आसान। गांव के ही त्र्यंबक सावंत नामक लड़के की एक शॉर्ट फिल्म बनाई है। बहुत दिनों से उसके दिमाग में घूमी रही थी यह बात। पुराने जमाने में फिल्म बनाना हो तो इसके लिए बहुत ज्यादा खर्च करना पड़ता था। कुछ की बहुत इच्छा होती थी, फिर भी हो नहीं पाता था। कुछ तो कर्ज में डूबे जाते थे। पूंजी के बिना इस धंधे में कदम नहीं रख सकते थे। शॉर्ट फिल्म के लिए खर्च भी तो आता है, लेकिन त्र्यंबक चाहता है कि बिना कुछ खर्च किए शॉर्ट फिल्म बने। गांव के परिवेश के ही 2 विषय उसके दिमाग में हैं। उनमें से एक विषय फाइनल करना और काम शुरू। कम से कम आज उसके पास मोबाइल के सिवा और दूसरा कोई साधन नहीं है। बीते कुछ साल त्र्यंबक बाहर ही था। अभी महीने 2 महीने पहले गांव आया है। माँ बाप अभी मजदूरी करती है। 3-4 एकड़ खेती है, लेकिन उससे पूरा नहीं पड़ता। त्र्यंबक पढ़ाई में जैसे तैसे ही, लेकिन चित्रकला का बहुत शौक। बचपन में स्कूल जाने के नाम पर घर से निकलता और गांव के आसपास के पहाड़, नदी, नाले घूमता रहता। कभी अलग अलग पेड़ों की पत्तियां तोड़कर उसकी रंगोली बनाता, तो कभी अनेक रंगों के आकारों वाले पत्थर जमा करता। मिट्टी के बैल, बाड़ा और न जाने कितनी बातें वह अपने हाथों से बनाता। पहाड़ियों में खिले जंगली फूल जमा कर उन्हें किसी डिजाइन की तरह सजाता। पेड़ों के आकार खोजता। ग्रीष्म में तो त्र्यंबक को पलाश के फूलों से बड़ा मोह हो जाता था। टीले पर खिले पलाश देखते हुए धूप में भटकता था। पेड़ कैसे बढ़ते हैं, फलों के आकार कैसे बदल जाते हैं, यही नहीं बल्कि फूल फल पेड़ से नीचे कैसे गिरते हैं, यह भी वह आंखों में कैद करने लगा। उसने बहुत सारे पेड़ों की जीर्ण पत्तियां, बीज जमा किए। कोई बीज पनपने के बाद मिट्टी का कवच तोड़कर टक्कर मारकर वह बाहर आता है। बाद में उसकी 2 पत्तियां फूटती है। बाद में वह धीरे धीरे बढ़ता जाता है। वह सोचता, ऐसा होना मतलब बीजों का बंधन से मुक्त होना, स्वतंत्र होना है। 4 दीवारों वाली पाठशाला के बजाय उसका यह पागलपन बढ़ता गया। गांव पहाड़ की तलहटी में था, इसलिए कारण बरसात में खिल उठने वाले नए नए पौधे, पहाड़ों से बहने वाला पानी, नाले के पास घंटों बैठता और बहते पानी की मछलियां, किनारे के कोटरे से सरसराते चलते केकड़े आदि को एकटक देखते रहता। यही नहीं बल्कि घास में चरने वाली किसी शरारती जानवर पर नजर पड़ती तो उसके गले की हलचल, पीठ पर मक्खी बैठने पर ठीक उसी जगह पर चाबुक जैसी जाकर लगने वाली उसकी दुम, यह सब कितना देखे और कितना नहीं। उसका जी ही नहीं भरता था। भूख प्यास का भी होश नहीं रहता था उसे। इस छोटे से गांव में मुहर्रम का त्योहार था। इस दिन कुछ बच्चे अपनी देह पर पीला, काला, लाल रंग पोतते हैं। उनके गले में गेंदे के फूलों की मालाएं होती है, सिर पर हरी पट्टी बांधी जाती है, उसमें मोरपंख लगाया जाता है। ऐसे छोटे बच्चे और उनका रंग रूप त्र्यंबक का चित्र एकाग्र करता है। पाठशाला में पढ़ाई करने के बजाय उसका यही चलता था। माँ बाप को चिंता होती थी, हम यहाँ रोज एक एक के मेंढ पर काम के लिए जाते हैं, बच्चे का कैसे होगा, वह जल्द से कमाकर कुछ ला कर दे। यह उनकी इच्छा नहीं थी, लेकिन कम से कम वह अपना पेट तो भर सके, उसे किसी के सामने हाथ तो न फैलने पड़े। लेकिन एक पाठशाला के गुरुजी ने घर वालों को समझाया कि आप उसकी चिंता मत कीजिए, उसे जो करना है वो करने दीजिए। इसके बाद त्र्यंबक और ज़्यादा मुक्त हो गया। गांव के आसपास की पाठशाला में 12वीं तक की पढ़ाई की, बाद में कला शिक्षा का डिप्लोमा किया और उसके बाद बड़े शहर जाकर शासकीय कला महाविद्यालय में स्नातक की पढ़ाई की। अब उसमें बदलाव बहुत आया है। पहले जब गांव आता था तब खेतों खलिहानों में भटकता था, दिन दिन भूख प्यास भूलकर किसी चीज की खोज में छोटी मोटी जगह तलाशने को भटकता था। लेकिन अब जब से वह गांव में आया है, तंद्रा लग जाने की तरह कहीं कहीं बैठता है। बचपन में जो देखा था अब वह उसे नए रूप में दिखने लगा है। जो दिख रहा है उसे किस संगीत का साथ दे और उसे दृश्य रूप में और ज्यादा असरदार कैसे बनाए, यही वह सोचता है। उसे लगता है बचपन में देखी न जाने कितनी बातों की नए सिरे से पहचान होने लगी है। कुछ पुरानी ही बातों के लिए अर्थ उसके समझ में आने लगे हैं। आज तक उसने चित्र बनाए, अब गांव परिसर का यथार्थ दृश्य में कैद करे, इस धुन से वह दीवाना हो गया है। बहुत सारे विषय थे उसके सामने, लेकिन उसने निश्चय किया है कि अब 2 ही विषयों में से एक को चुनना है और जल्द ही काम शुरू करना है। उसके जो 2 विषय थे, एक था दर्द की थैली और दूसरा था मछली। ये दोनों विषय अच्छे लगते थे, लेकिन पर्दे पर अच्छा क्या लगेगा, यह वह सोच रहा था। कलात्मकता और दृश्यात्मकता किसमें अधिक होगी, यह उसकी सोच थी। दर्द की थैली विषय की तैयारी करने के लिए पहले भी वह काफी घूमा था। इस इलाके से गन्ना छीलने के लिए मजदूरों का प्रचंड विस्थापन होता है। मजदूरों के अनेक जोड़े चले जाते हैं, एक जोड़े का मिलकर एक गंडासा बनता है जिसे कोयता कहते हैं। एक वन कपल, जो महिलाएं गन्ना छीलने के लिए जाती है, उनकी अगणित समस्याएं हैं। उसने देखा है उसके साथ स्कूल में पढ़ने वाली लड़कियों की 8वीं 9वीं कक्षा में ब्याह हुए हैं। बचपन से वह यह भी देखते आया है कि ब्याह के बाद 15-16 साल की लड़कियां भी गन्ना छीलने के लिए चली जाती है। 20-25 की उम्र में के भीतर लड़कियां 1-2 बच्चे की मां बन जाती है। दशहरे के बाद गन्ना छीलने के लिए लोग सीधे गर्मी का मौसम खत्म होते होते गांव लौट आते हैं। जो महिलाएं गन्ना छीलने जाती है उन्हें माहवारी के दिनों में परेशानी होती है। उन 4-5 दिनों के दरमियान भी उन्हें गन्ने के गट्टर ढोने पड़ते हैं। रात दिन काम काम, इस ढोर मेहनत की कोई इंतहा नहीं। तो माहवारी के दिनों में ठीक से सफाई भी नहीं रखी जा सकती, इसलिए अब इधर के गांवों में स्त्रियों का गर्भाशय ही निकाल के फेंकने का प्रचलन बढ़ गया है। माहवारी के दिनों में काम का नागा न हो और माहवारी का झंझट भी खत्म हो, इसलिए ये ऑपरेशन। इसके लिए 30-35 हजार रुपये गिनना, यह मामला सरेआम चल रहा है। बीते कुछ दिनों से विषय के भौरे की तरह त्र्यंबक का पीछा कर रहा है। एक यह विषय और उसके दिमाग में दूसरा विषय है, उसमें भी दृश्यात्मकता खूब भरी हुई है। उसके गांव से कुछ किलोमीटर दूर पहाड़ी पर चीनी मिल है। चीनी मिल का सारा गंदा पानी एक बड़े तालाब में छोड़ दिया गया है। यह तालाब किसका बनाया हुआ नहीं है, बल्कि अपने आप ही सभी तरफ से पहाड़ी और बीच में कोई गहरे पात्र जैसा तालाब। इस तालाब का पानी पहले बिल्कुल निर्मल था, कारखाने का गंदला जल इसमें जमा हुआ। तालाब के पानी पर एक अजीबोगरीब काले रंग की परत फैल गई। मिल से सटे एक गांव में कुछ कहारों के घर है। वे इस तालाब में मछलियां पकड़ते हैं और शहर में बेच जाते हैं। 8-10 परिवारों की जीविका है यह। पहले चीनी मिल का यह गंदला जल दूसरी तरफ छोड़ा जाता था, लेकिन उस तरफ के गांव वालों ने शिकायत की और चीनी मिल के प्रबंधन ने निर्णय लिया और बिना कोई आगा पीछा देके पानी सीधे तालाब में छोड़ दिया। 1-2 दिन कहारों को कुछ भी पता नहीं था। एक दिन सुबह सुबह तालाब पर 2-4 लोग मछली पकड़ने चले गए। तब उनके ध्यान में आया पानी पर काले रंग की परत फैल गई है। जाल डालने के बाद कुछ मछलियां आई, लेकिन सब मरी हुई। तालाब के दूसरे छोर पर जाल फेंका, वहां भी वही। तालाब के किनारे की मरी हुई मछलियां का ढेर लगा, उसकी बदबू फैल गई। कहार चीनी मिल के दफ्तर में गए, पर वहां उनकी बात सुनता कौन। फिर तहसीलदार, जिलाधिकारी को निवेदन दिया गया, कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ। एक दिन चीनी मिल के कुछ गुंडे उस गांव में भेजे गए। दिन उगने से पहले कुछ लोगों को उन्होंने खूब पीटा। अब दोबारा कहीं शिकायत की तो देखना, तालाब तुम्हारे बाप का नहीं है। और उन्होंने कच्चे मकानों का सत्यानाश कर डाला। इसके बाद 2-3 दिन तरह से आतंक होते ही रहा। कहार गली के लोग दहल से गए। कहार परिवार की एक लड़की ने इसके खिलाफ आवाज उठाई। चीनी मिल की दादागिरी की परवाह लिए बिना 10-5 मछुआरों को लेकर तहसील जिलाधिकारी कार्यालय के सामने उसने धरना आंदोलन किया। चीनी मिल पर जुर्माना लगाइए, मछुआरों का मुआवजा दीजिए। समाचार सभी तरफ फैल गया। उसने सीधे राष्ट्रीय हरित न्यायालय के पास न्याय मांगा। अब चीनी मिल को झटका लग गया है। यह सब जिसके कारण हुआ वह शारदा बिजुले से त्र्यंबक मिलकर आया है। गांव से रोज तहसील में आकर उसने अपने कॉलेज की पढ़ाई पूरी की है। डिग्री के अंतिम साल में पढ़ते पढ़ते उसने यह आंदोलन किया था। तेज तर्रार बोलती है, चेहरे पर डर का नामो निशान नहीं। जिस तालाब की मछलियां मरी पड़ी थी, त्र्यंबक अब 2-3 बार उस तालाब पर हो आया है। त्र्यंबक ने सोच लिया है कि अगर इस विषय पर शॉर्ट फिल्म बनानी है तो कौन कौन से दृश्य लिए जा सकते हैं। निर्मल तालाब, पहले लगातार कलैया मारती, पानी में चांदी की तरह चमचम चमकती मछलियां, प्रार्थना की घंटी बजने के बाद जिस तरह सभी तरफ बिखरे बच्चे मैदान पर जमा होते हैं, वैसे खाने के लिए कुछ डालने के बाद फटाफट जमा होने वाली मछलियां। उस निर्मल पानी में एक दिन जहरीला काला पानी आकर मिल जाता है। मछलियों का तड़पना शुरू होता है। उनका तड़पना कहारों को भी छलनी कर जाता है। डरी सहमी कहारों की बस्ती व्यवस्था में टकराते हुए उनकी न्यायपूर्ण मांगे, चीनी मिल द्वारा उनकी आवाज को दबा देना। इसके बाद उन्हीं में से उभरी शारदा बिजुले का संघर्ष, एक के लिए मजबूती से खड़े रहना। ऐसी न जाने कितने दृश्य है। तालाब दोबारा पहले जैसा स्वच्छ होगा। कलैया मारने की तरह मछलियां सर्र से इस छोर से गायब होकर तालाब के उस छोर से प्रकट होकर ऊपर आती हुई दिखाई देगी। और फिर एक दिन पूर्णिमा की दुधिया चांदनी होगी तालाब पर। पानी में चांदी के टुकड़े जैसे चमकने की तरह मछलियां चमचमाती हुई नजर आएंगी। सब कुछ पहले जैसा स्वच्छ निर्मल। एक दर्द की थैली और दूसरा मछली। इन दोनों विषयों में से त्र्यंबक को जल्द से जल्द एक का चयन करना है। शॉर्ट फिल्मों के अनेक महोत्सव और प्रतियोगिताएं उसकी प्रतीक्षा कर रही है। कहानी सुनाना खत्म हुआ हो, लेकिन ऐसी कहानियां घटती है ना हमारे इर्द गिर्द। यथार्थ में जीते समय पर्दे पर घटित सच नहीं है, यह पहले समझाया जाता था। लोग कहते थे सच थोड़ी होता है यह। अब सच चाहे जितना हो, मगर पर्दे पर देखने की आदत होने के कारण कितना मिश्रण हो गया है। हमारे ही इर्द गिर्द का सब कुछ पर्दे पर देखते समय उसकी चुभन जलन कम हो गई ना। यही सब छोटे पर्दे पे घुसता है और फिर हमारे सामने आता है किसी न किसी रूप में, 2, 4, 5, 10 मिनटों के टुकड़ों में। और फिर ये टुकड़े वायरल होते हैं। पहले कहा था ना, कहानी समय को बांधे रखती है, लेकिन यह कहानी नहीं है। इर्द गिर्द के परिवेश के ऐसे न जाने कितने टुकड़े जमा होते हैं, घूमते रहते हैं बिल्कुल दुनिया की इस छोर से लेकर उस छोर तक, यह देखने के लिए कि पहले सुनाई जाने वाली कहानियों की तरह वे गहराई में रिश्ते हैं या नहीं। अपने आप को खोदते रहना पड़ेगा। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir. Our next eminent speaker is M. Narendra. He writes in Narendra. He writes in English and Telugu. He has to his credit 7 short story collections, 4 novels, 2 plays, 1 research book. Besides, he also edited several books. He is a recipient of Katamraju Rama Rao Award, Madras, Telugu Academy Award, Katha Award, Mexico University Award, Rabindranath Tagore Puraskaram, Mallemala Sahitya Puraskaram, among others. I welcome you, sir, for your address.
Respected President of this session, distinguished writers, poets on the dais and off the dais. Good afternoon to all of you. So at the very outset, I thank the Sahitya Academy for inviting me to this important literary festival. And the story that I am going to read was originally written in Telugu, then it was translated into English. It is a short story, but to suit it to the occasion, I have to trim it further, and so it will be very short story. The original name of the story in Telugu is Atadu Nadachina Dari, and the English translation is The Road He Had Taken. I hope all of you remember the famous poem of Robert Frost. It will remind you, but the story is something different. So the story goes like this. In fact, in the original story, the protagonist was not given a name. He was simply called he, for the reasons quite obvious. But to make it comfortable to the audience, I have to give a name to him here. I simply called him Naresh. He may be everybody. After examining Naresh, the doctor went to the other side of the screen and said to his son, "If you go for the operation, it has to be done in 2 days. But we can't predict whether he lives longer or succumbs to death if the operation is undertaken. It depends only on luck. The decision is left to you," the doctor said loudly, obviously wanting Naresh to be overheard. To be or not to be, that was the question. Naresh was all ears to know the response of his son. "We will all discuss it to arrive at a final decision, sir," his son implored the doctor sheepishly. "That is left to you. If you opt for the operation, it has to be taken up in a day or two. It may be helpful or fatal. We are not sure whether he succumbs or lives longer if you go for the operation. Nothing is certain now, but the decision has to be taken quickly at the cost of a risk," the doctor stammered. The doctor himself was not in a position to make a decision. He was not sure whether the operation was required or not, but was forcing the patient's people to take a risk. The decision had to be taken, but who would take it? The doctor threw the ball to the other side of the court and went away. Naresh realized that the doctor would be in his shoes and he would be in the doctor's place if he would have taken a different decision nearly 30 years back. But how could there be a relationship between his body and that decision? Naresh puzzled. He laid his head on the pillow falteringly and closed his eyes. His uncle would have jumped in joy if he would have accepted to marry Prabhavati. But his uncle was a mere headmaster, and then Prabhavati was searching for a teacher's job after completing B.Ed. Moreover, the alliance of Sanjay, whose father was a business tycoon, came to him at that juncture. Sanjay's father had a son and a daughter, 3 houses, 2 business enterprises, and 3 luxury cars, and he declared that he would distribute his property equally to his son and daughter. Was it Prabhavati or Sanjay? Sanjay did not study well, unlike Prabhavati. Prabhavati was lean, long, red and courtly. Sanjay was short, plump and brown. Prabhavati could become a teacher and earn a monthly salary if everything went well. But Sanjay was born with a golden spoon in her mouth. Prabhavati's husband, the doctor here, was busy with the practice which didn't have retirement. What would have happened if he would have risked marrying Prabhavati? Both of them would have retired as principals, that's all. I would not have been as affluent as I am now, Naresh thought. He did not spoil the property he got from his father-in-law. He never took a risk and invested in doubtful ventures. He staked a considerable portion of his income in real estate, and it proved to be highly lucrative. Naresh got annoyed when a new patient joined the bed on the other side of the curtain, and the people who came along with him were raising an awful hullabaloo. When some of them fell on the screen and forced it down, he glanced at the patient. The old man on the cot, who was not at all morose, but was very ebullient, instead gleefully inquired, "Oh, it is you, my dear Naresh. What's your ailment?" Naresh could recollect that the old man was his math teacher in high school. When he was promoted to the 8th class, his parents wanted him to join composite mathematics, and the teacher concerned, the same old man on the other bed, too advised him to opt for that as he found him suitable. Why should one get toiled and get exhausted in the name of proficiency? The old man of the neighboring bed offered Naresh an apple while noisily munching an apple with his dentures and said, "They say that I have cancer. Now I am 90 and there is a need for a pretext to shed this body. I want to enjoy the home rejecting all these damn medicines, but these sons and daughters are turning a deaf ear to me." The old man was laughing as if he had won a lottery. Some students who were not as clever as him chose composite mathematics and finally became engineers and earned a lot with both hands. They staked their entire life on it and got terribly worn off in the rat race. They did not know either the clubs or the parties, but I enjoyed my life to the fullest by playing rummy, participating in the wet parties and dilly-dallying, Naresh felt. A visitor who came there to call on a patient in the other room came to him and said, "Sir, how are you? Why are you here? What does the doctor say?" He gazed at him sluggishly and replied hesitatingly, "I am fairly okay. Have you come alone? Where is Johnsy?" "She didn't, sir. Where is reason for her? She will be there wherever there is a problem, and where is a place without a hitch nowadays in our country? She remembers that she has a husband very rarely. Until then I have to attend to the work she assigns. Now she would be in Ranasthala leading a protest match," he exclaimed with a beaming face. Naresh remembered the days he spent with Johnsy when he was a bachelor during the first few years of his appointment as a lecturer in Nagaram. She was already married by then, and her husband was a leader of a workers' union. Her husband used to travel a lot to attend the union meetings, and so Johnsy remained aloof, having been crushed under the burden of loneliness. That gave Naresh room enough to enter into a secret relationship with her called living together. He used to have a lot of fun with her except 2 or 3 days when her husband comes to their home per month, turning his back on the gossip of the friends and neighbors. But the tables were turned when her husband passed away in a dire car accident. After recovering from the depression, Johnsy asked Naresh straight away, "When do we get married?" He was shockingly taken aback as he did not expect that question from her and fled from the town on a month's medical leave and did not go to that side of her house even afterwards. He would have dragged that kind of relationship further and further, but not prepared to accept the responsibilities and the burdens in the name of a marriage. He procured the transfer from the town as quickly as possible by falling at the feet of higher officials and got into the folds of the marriage soon to ward off the danger. After some time, Naresh learnt that Johnsy got a job on compensation and she took the reins of the union, and also that she married a junior of the union who began to play second fiddle to her afterwards. Why should this bloke come here reminding me all those things at this juncture? Naresh worried. He was afraid the entire world seemed to plot against him. But he consoled himself immediately, realizing that he was always alarmed. He congratulated himself again for not yielding to the temptation of wooing a damn big name and for escaping the burden, unlike Sindbad, of carrying a devil on his back. Johnsy will be upset to know that you are admitted to hospital, sir. I have to inform her immediately. I have come here to make an inquiry of the student agitation in the college here. I have to go there again to find out the recent developments. Johnsy's husband went away without concluding his sentence. Naresh closed his eyes agitatedly. He could overhear his son saying, "Daddy is not telling whether he is for the operation or not. I will ask him again." He was about to doze off due to the tablets he swallowed an hour back, but someone shook him and said, "Are you asleep? Come on, look here, see who has come here to see you." Naresh opened his eyes and tried to smile feebly. "Haven't you recognized him? It is Sudarshanam." He nodded his head horizontally. He could not forget his research supervisor forever, and Sudarshanam also worked under the same supervisor for the PhD. His guide declared, Sudarshanam is not well versed in literature like you. The influence of Marxism on Telugu novels, that will be your topic for research. But Naresh screamed, I am not fond of ideological studies and my readings of Telugu journals is only meant for time passing. I want to study the movie songs instead for the PhD. But Sudarshanam foolishly took up that topic given by the supervisor, left the research in the middle, went away choosing a petty job, whereas Naresh could scribble something and got PhD degree like cake walking. After he found out that Sudarshanam wrote a series of essays on postmodernism afterwards. Those who play with the windmills would suffer like that, Naresh felt. Unlike us, our Sudarshanam doesn't have superannuation. The friend who brought Sudarshanam told him. He told Naresh that Sudarshanam had been working at least 15 hours per day and every writer was eager to know his impressions on his writings. He added that the intelligentsia worried of his not being given the coveted National Critic Award, but Sudarshanam was so engrossed in his writings that he did not have time to think of those bloody awards. The way that Sudarshanam spoke to Naresh reflected his coldness and indifference, very much like his critical writings. But the friend trotted out of the room along with Sudarshanam with admiration for everything that Sudarshanam spoke. His son came to him after an hour and once again shrieked, the doctor needs our decision immediately. If you are for the operation, he has to summon the medicines needed from the town. Moreover, the physician who would take up the operation has to be informed at the earliest. The doctor had thrown the ball in the patient's court and then his son and his wife were not willing to take the onus on them. He remembered that he had been always making wise choices since his childhood, BA or BCom, employment or business, wife or mother, wife or lover. He was always prudent enough to choose the right one. Library or movie, house or club, book or mobile, finding the right one was always a child's play for him. But the question that he encountered then was not like the others. None, including the doctor, knew what exactly lurks in his body. None could predict how his body would react to the operation. The operation might prolong his longevity or curtail his existence. The denial of the operation might be fatal. The doctor left the operation to the choice of the patient, and even his wife and son did not want to take the risk of choosing. They wanted him to take the decision, and if it proved to be good, they would definitely claim the credit, and if it was otherwise, they would simply put the blame on him. Naresh realized that it was a life and death problem only for him, but did not know what to do to survive further. He began to breathe heavily, and his chest began to warble like a bellow. His eyelids drooped like iron shutters. His wife and son shook his body alarmingly, and when he didn't respond, they ran to the doctor, and the doctor rushed to him without delay. The doctor tested him and heaved a deep sigh in confusion. Then he shook his head after 2 minutes and said, the patient's body falls into a swoon like this only when he decides for an operation. If you are in need of a proof for it, I have a way out. I will give him an injection now, and he will come to his senses immediately if he is for the operation. Naresh thought that the doctor plotted against him cleverly when he was pretending to be in a swoon, leaving others to take the decision. Was the doctor intended to come to my rescue or sadistically playing a cruel game with me? Naresh was dreadfully perturbed. Was he taking a revenge for the bygone things by playing with my life? Naresh lamented pitifully. Why should I be a victim to his tricks? No. I will open my eyes now to bring down the curtains on this entire drama. Naresh's wife and son could not think that the doctor would pierce the needle of the syringe into his forearm so quickly. Naresh could open his eyes for a few seconds and then fell into a deep slumber. He opened his eyes, his son shouted, but closed his eyes immediately. His wife screamed. The doctor looked both of them bewilderingly. The doubts and apprehensions of the looks cornered him once again. In a state like this, how can he tell you more clearly? The doctor mumbled. That's all. Thank you.
Now I would invite session chair to please conclude the session with his closing remarks.
Dear friends, we listen to your stories intently and were transported to realms of gold. We became dwellers of eternity, to use a famous phrase. And we also experienced, to use Luca's words, transcendental homelessness. As I was listening to these stories, the art of fiction has certain principles. The famous celebrated French saying that literature is not a museum without walls. There are certain constraints, there are certain traditions. As brother said, that there is no plot. The point is, the plot was annihilated long back. A story can exist, survive wonderfully and viably without a plot. I am reminded of so many fictions that I have the chance to read and experience. Someone asked Anton Chekhov, when you write a story, what challenge you face? Did you face any challenge? He said, yes. What is that challenge? He said, the opening line. The opening of a story is very crucial to the entire ethos, aesthetics, dynamic of the story. It's not the character, the dialogue. These are orthodox canons of the art of fiction. I am reminded of Faulkner's famous novel Absalom, Absalom. The protagonist, the hero, is not present in the story, interestingly. It's a point of view technique. He's a master. Faulkner is a master of the point of view technique. Others too, Henry James has also used that. His character is built up through the medium of many other characters. His wife speaks about him, what kind of a husband he was. His beloved speaks about, Satpan is his name, about his qualities as a lover. His classmate who lived with him in the hostel talks about his friend as a jovial, as a very nice, gentlemanly, friendly pal. So a character is built up through experimentation. What happens in Mrs. Dalloway, the celebrated Stream of Consciousness novel? And about such novels it is said that there is no linearity. Time is not moving in a chronological manner. Time is always in life. When we were listening to the stories, there were many stories taking birth in our consciousness or at the subconscious levels. We may have been dreaming of something at the same time listening to the stories. So this kind of experimentation, the annihilation of linearities and the chronological orders, is the contribution of 20th century fiction. It is said about a story, it begins on a middle and ends on a middle. It has no proper beginning, no medial episodes, and no proper fairy tale ending. And thereafter all lived happily. So this experimentation is very interesting, but the moot point that always stands out is कि इन सब प्रयोगों के बाद क्या कहानी में कहानीपन है या नहीं है? All these are technical innovations. You can do anything in a work of art, anything, but not everything. An artist has the freedom to take liberty with the techniques, with the modes of narration. He can do anything, but not everything. That leads to anarchy, leads to unartistic kind of productions. So in these stories I found certain ingredients of the art of storytelling, which by way of sharing I would like to observe. I found in these stories, I may mention that a story as a literary text has many voices. There is it's not a mono-voiced text. It has many voices that may be implied, that may be intoned or undertoned, or a subterranean text. There is a text the authors had before in front of them, but there is always behind the written text an unwritten text. That unwritten text is submerged within the verbal surface structure. This is what Noam Chomsky talks about, that there is a surface structure in language and there is a deep structure. So these stories had a surface structure, but at the same time they were unwritten texts which were coming upward, going downward. A kind of seesaw situation was there. This is because art, modern art, contemporary art, be it a story, a novel, or any other literary form, drama, it's a flux. Because in 20th century we are living in, to use the much maligned word, postmodern age. In the postmodern age, in the Indian context, the misfortune is that technology has advanced marvelously, but Indian mind is not attuned to those advancements. And the social psychologists call it cultural lag. Her mind is not moving with those advancements. So many accidents, so many misunderstandings, so many suicides taking place, unfortunately. Daily we see. This is because of technology. the lover says, I love you. After a week, he changes the mind. Then he simply says, oh, it was a kind of misunderstanding. So, mind has become a flux. Indian mind, I am talking about. I am not a social scientist. But as a student of literature, literature embraces all branches of humanities. A bit of psychology, a bit of sociology, a bit of Freudian psychology, Jungian psychology, myth. So all these things intermingle in these stories, and I found in these stories author, three types of authors. In some stories, we find omniscient author who knows everything. He is the narrator. He enjoys a godlike status in the story. Everything comes from the godlike author, omniscient author. Then in some stories I saw intrusive author. Author is leaving things to the characters, the situation, the atmosphere, and for a while embraces the self, then reappears and makes intrusive statements. And I also found reliable author, unreliable author. An author that can be trusted, unreliable, who is giving us the partial truths of life. So this kind of, and another thing I found, there has been a time shift also, not in a dominant manner, but time shift was there, interior monologue was there, and point of view was there. Point of view, obviously, even in oral tradition, point of view was there. In colloquial, when the whole village would assemble to listen to one man telling his story. After all, he was telling from some vantage point. He was telling a story from some other sources. And this reminds me of intertextuality. When, sir, you said that you might be familiar with Robert Frost's celebrated poem, The Road Not Taken. It is a case of intertextuality. No text is autonomous, independent. And in this case, to conclude, we enjoyed thoroughly and we carry with us memorable time. And you see the difference between the poetry sessions and the storytelling sessions. Why this difference? Not lunch drowsiness, but people want instant pleasure, which poetry gives. For a listener to a story, you have to give your mind and attention, your whole being. Something is happening there. One line of poetry, दिल नादा तुझे हुआ क्या है, आखिर इस दर्द की दवा क्या, वाह वाह वाह. Here there is no wah wah. In story there is no wah wah. So that's why we have a sparse gathering. But I admire your presence as the chair, that you could come and you participated mentally, intellectually, morally into what the storytellers told us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bhupinder Aziz Pariharji, for your splendid oration. Now I would like to call upon Professor Lalit Mangotra, Sahit Academy Award winner in Dogri language, to please provide the uttariya to our guests over the stage. Yes, sir. To do the felicitations.
Thank you.
So this is literature where we forget ourselves. That is literature. Literature makes us sensitive. Literature only makes us sensitive. And I request you all to stand up for a group photograph. Sir, please join us. Yeah.
You honored us. You are crucial to the galaxy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, the audience, for being so patient and cooperative. Thank you so much. With this, we end this session and we'll be back at 4:30 for the next session.